Alfie Stirling's with us as well, the head of economics at the New Economics Foundation. Alfie, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Well, Stephen sounds optimistic. He's quite encouraged, actually, by the whole idea, trying to get people back in the restaurant. And surely the Eat Out to Help Out scheme's got something to do with that in terms of actually allowing restaurants to reopen in this way.
Well, sadly, I do think the policy actually is a bit of a gimmick. And I think actually the interview we just had there, from your previous guest, sort of demonstrated that, because, it's really good to hear the positivity, and actually a lot of that optimism was about, the general outlook for the restaurant and for the sector. But it wasn't really attributable to the policy. Your guest was saying, actually, they're not going to take up the scheme even on Monday and Tuesday, if I heard correctly. They're only going to a Wednesday, and actually they felt like it was going to have a limited impact, that marginal impact of the scheme itself in bringing people through the door because of the value of the discount. And I think ultimately this points to the bottom line problem with this policy, which is that it's predicated on the idea that there is this big trade-off between the economy and public health, and the idea that if people are afraid to go and eat out, or if it's a risk to people's health to eat out, all you've got to do is offer them a discount. Whereas the reality is actually the only way to properly get back to an economy as normal, or something better than normal ideally, is to stop the circulation of this virus. And that won't happen actually by just giving people a discount.
But at the same time, at which point do you have to say, well, look, we can't prop up the number of people who are furloughed, for example. We can't keep every business open. And actually, it's things like this that sort of start nudging the economy back into life again and back into action. You heard how enthusiastic Stephen was actually to be running his restaurant again and to actually be able to feed people, to have people in for to have their dinner and whatnot. And actually, there comes a point where, where do you draw the line between it being a gimmick and actually it being essential to keep people working and to keep businesses operating?
I just fear that that perspective is too short term. In reality, the countries that have shown how you really get back to a healthy economy are those that have managed to really suppress the prevalence of this virus so that it's low enough that you just don't have to have serious lockdown measures, and you can contain the spread either through very localized lockdowns or through test, track and isolate policies. If you don't get the virus down to that level, all you're going to get is risks of a second wave. And we're seeing that now, sadly, across Europe. There are dangers now here in the UK as well. In some ways, this scheme could not have been worse timed, with areas of Manchester beginning to go back into lockdown. So I hear what you're saying in the short term. Yes, we need policies to nudge people. But if we haven't got view of that longer term, which is this going to contribute to a second wave, then actually it's all running around in summer to have a really bad winter, and we won't be saying, this was good for the economy in 6 months' time if it has precipitated a second wave of this virus.